From the studio in Nitro, West Virginia, this is Unreasonable Doubt. It's a podcast about West Virginia University basketball. I'm Josh Witt, and wow, is there a Charleston curse? Charleston, South Carolina, Charleston, West Virginia, same result. West Virginia comes to the Charleston Civic Center, Charleston, West Virginia, plays a really good Wake Forest team, and lost 75-66. So there's a Charleston thing happening this season. West Virginia is now 0-3 in a city called Charleston that they play in. So there's good and bad news to the Charleston thing. The good news is that by my look at the schedule, West Virginia doesn't play any more games in Charleston this season. I don't think. I mean, is Charleston a tournament site? Some kind of postseason tournament site? I don't know. Postseason play feels a bit far away right now, given how West Virginia has played against teams that are not in the 300s in KenPom. So they haven't won in a city called Charleston. Good news is there's no more Charleston games. The bad news is I think they're going to lose games in cities that aren't named Charleston. I think they're going to lose at least one game, probably more, in games in the Hope Coliseum. They haven't lost there yet, but Big 12 play rolls around, and that's going to be a challenge. So 3 losses in Charleston. All 3 losses, West Virginia's opponent scored over 70 points. And I talked about it in the podcast. 70s is a problem. 80s, they're losing. West Virginia did not sniff 70, and Wake Forest got to 75. How did Wake do it? It involved some firsts for the Mountaineers this season, 10 games in. It was the first game WVU had more turnovers than their opponent. Wake Forest turned over West Virginia 17 times tonight. A lot of these were trap on the pick and roll, trap the guard, and then the guard tried to throw over the trap, and time again, that did not work out well. And those 17 turnovers led to 25 Wake Forest points. Wake was plus 11 in points off turnovers. That's a big difference in the game, was the turnovers. Not a recipe. West Virginia's lost 2 games where they've won the turnover battle. It appears that if West Virginia loses the turnover battle, that's a big problem. And it was tonight. This was also the first in a game of first, the first game that West Virginia allowed opponent to shoot over 50% from the field. I believe Wake Forest shot 51%. The juke guy for Wake Forest, he could add 40 if he didn't get into foul trouble early in the first half. Pick and roll defense was sketchy at times, especially in the second half. And even with that defense, West Virginia had this down to a 5-point lead by Wake Forest with 5.5 minutes left. Got a stop on the 3-pointer, but he got an offensive rebound and put back. And 8 possessions, Wake scored on 6 of them in the last 5.5 minutes. And that's the game. So defense, Ross Hodge is trying to model his program after Houston, and they are not there yet as far as defense. If you're going to be Houston Jr., you can't be giving up the number of open dunks that were given up tonight, and how they're defending the 3. They are not good at defending the 3 so far this season. And Juke had 7 threes tonight. Not great. Not great. But let's talk about West Virginia's offense. Ross Hodge is a defensive-minded coach. He wants to lean on the defense, but the defense isn't good enough. Apparently, in the games against good teams or teams that are Power 5 teams. So then you got to do something offensively. And the offense was rough tonight. The offense was carried by 2 guys, Chance Moore, Honor Huff. Outside of the Xavier game, Chance Moore has been pretty consistent. He does what he does. Tonight, 16 points, 8 rebounds, carried the offense in stretches. A lot of standing. Hey, Chance, make a play. And he as we know, he dribbles the ball with his left hand and gets to the rim. And he's going to try to finish. And he got to the free throw line, and he was finishing. And I would say he was the best offensive player tonight on a team that Honor Huff was on. And Honor Huff had moments, but he was 5 of 17 from 3. So if only 2 guys are giving you offense and one of them is shooting 29% from 3 on 17 attempts, that's not a great combination. And he was getting good looks from the beginning of the game to the end. He was getting open looks. He shot 29%. And he's had games like this, and overall he's around 40% for the season. The competition is going to improve dramatically soon. So I'm feeling less confident that Honor Huff can repeat his 43% that he did at Chattanooga last year. It's not looking good. So that was your offense. Those 2 guys. I with bits and pieces here and there, but that's being generous. It was Chance Moore and it was Honor Huff. And let's talk about other guys on the team and what they provided offensively. And I'm looking at 2 starters that in the offseason declared for the NBA draft and kind of tested the waters before returning to college. 2 of those guys are on this WVU roster. Now, one of those guys, this was his 100th Division I basketball game. And in his 100th game in college, he did not attempt a shot. He started the game, did not attempt a 2-pointer, a 3-pointer, a free throw. Trayson Eaglestaff played 10 minutes today. No points, sat for most of the second half. This is after 3 games in a row. One was against Xavier. The other 2 were against teams that are not good at basketball. But still, 3 decent games, and cut to today, no shot attempts, and sat for most of the second half. So that's one of your guys on the roster that tested the NBA waters. The other guy, he was 1 of 5 from the field, and in his college career, he's never had as many turnovers in a game as he did tonight. 6 turnovers. Brennan Laureate is the other guy. He played 22 minutes tonight. And last episode, I talked about you're seeing guys' moves, like the Chance Moore dribble with your left hand and get to the basket. We saw the Honor Huff move tonight. Not as effective as it usually is, but we did see it. The Laureate ISO post-up is a move that I do not like. Think of a spectrum. On the I love it side of the spectrum, it's the Chance Moore get to the rim move. On the other side of the spectrum is when it's clear out, hey, Brennan Laureate, dribble with your back towards the basket and see what comes up. It doesn't seem to end well. I don't like that offense. He was not effective tonight. And so you have those 2 guys, and then you had 4 other starters besides Honor Huff go for a combined 4 made field goals in 40 minutes. So Honor Huff, your 5 starters, Honor Huff, 5 of 17 from 3. The other 4 starters, and he made a couple of 2s and he made some free throws. The other starters made 4 baskets in 40 minutes. And you now have, with this starting lineup that's been unchanged since the beginning of the season, 2 of the 5 guys have had 1 game where they didn't attempt a field goal. Eaglestaff and Obioha, who didn't play a ton of minutes tonight. So that's not great. And then on the coaching side, you had multiple possessions. I have never coached basketball. I am watching the game. I enjoy the game. If I can tell this is happening, it's not good. And there were more than 1 possession where somebody is dribbling out front and you have 4 guys spread out around the perimeter, and not one of those guys are moving, setting a screen, doing anything. It's staring at the guy dribbling. And that is an offense that you'll break out if you have a big lead, if you're running clock. West Virginia trailed most of the game tonight. Like, it was a miracle that this game was tied at the half because it was rough for most of it. So trailing, and that's the offense. Wake Forest is good at basketball. I get it. But that should not be happening on offense. There are guys in this game tonight that looked hesitant to shoot the ball. And that's not great. And there were some attempts where you saw the shot and you understand why they're hesitant to shoot the ball. Is that one game? Is that something bigger? We're 10 games into the season. We're going to see, or things will become definite. I don't think you can call it at 10 games. But that's concerning. Good Wake Forest team. Michigan is awesome. They started conference play. They blew the brakes off of Rutgers. They have really impressive wins, and Wake Forest took them to the brink, overtime, lost by 1 in Detroit. That is a very impressive resume loss that Wake Forest has. And of course, Wake Forest comes into this one coming off of a loss, their worst game of the season. So of course they are looking to bounce back, and they're a good team. And so they found that bounce back in Charleston. And of course, West Virginia struggling in cities named Charleston. I had West Virginia in non-conference play going 10-3. West Virginia has the 3 losses now in non-conference play, but they can still finish 10-3. It puts a lot of pressure on West Virginia's visit to Cleveland next weekend to play Ohio State. But it's still possible, and I'm not going to make that a must-win because who am I? Obviously, I want to be right in my prediction, but if they go 9-4, that's not far off from what I had in my head as far as the non-conference schedule. So they're close to what I thought. The holidays are almost here, and if you still have names on your list, don't panic. Uncommon Goods makes holiday shopping stress-free and joyful with thousands of one-of-a-kind gifts you can't find anywhere else. I'm looking at my computer at Uncommon Goods. You type in West Virginia University. They got cool stuff, WVU themed. I've got the can-shaped glasses. They're my favorite glasses to drink out of. They got a college town wall sculpture, a stadium lights end table, super cool stuff, unique, one-of-a-kind gifts you can't find anywhere else. So don't wait. Make this holiday the year you give something truly unforgettable. To get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/musket. That's uncommongoods.com/musket for 15% off. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods. We're all out of the ordinary. Here's an interesting thing that happened after the game. I watched the post-game press conference. I was in the building, by the way. I was at the Charleston Civic Center. The new seats are nice. They're comfortable. It's got the cup holders. A lot of nostalgia. Trying to exit the Charleston Town Center parking garage is just like I remember it back in the day in a big event where you are stuck and people are beeping at each other just like I remember because no one's moving, and after a certain amount of time you just start beeping. The crowd was into it. The things happening during timeouts and breaks, not a ton happening for the Charleston game. It was just a DJ playing a song. I don't guess you need a lot more than that. But the crowd was into it, and really, for a Charleston Civic Center crowd, was solid. Got loud when they were supposed to. Let's Go Mountaineer chants were solid. Good turnout in Charleston. So they should definitely try to make that happen every year if they can, and I'm being selfish there because that's easier for me to get to than Morgantown. Ross Hodge's post-game press conference. I'm not going to quote this verbatim, but this is the gist of what he said when being asked about aggressiveness and effort and what it's looking like. Here's what Ross Hodge said. This is game 10, but it gives you an insight of what he's looking at from a coaching perspective. And he's not naming names, but there is definitely message sending in this layout of what he's doing from a coaching standpoint. Here's what he said. There's a few different ways to look at it. The first thing to look at from a coaching standpoint is, are you doing what we're asking you to do hard enough? That's where you start. So that's the first step. The next thing on the checklist, if you've got that, is to change personnel and see if they'll do what you're asking them to do, them being the coaches. And then if you've marked off number one, that they're doing what they're asking you to do hard enough, and you've done the step where you've tried different people and it's still not working, and he said this is the hardest step for a coach to take, is that maybe you got to try and do something else. Not an exact quote, but I feel confident that I'm laying that out with the intent that Ross Hodge was giving. So that's interesting, right? We all agree that he's still on step one because now there's 10 guys in the rotation. Ugasuk and Thomas played less than 10 minutes tonight. 2 of the starters played less than 15 minutes tonight. Still trying different things, seeing what's working. So he's on step one in that the starters have remained the same, even with introducing Chance Moore and introducing Jackson Fields. Still the same starting 5. A little bit of changes in minutes. But look, he's on step one. Are you doing what we're asking you to do hard enough? But 10 games in and watching that performance tonight, how long before Coach Hodge goes down the checklist? When does he get to step 2? And what does step 2 look like? I mean, for me, it looks like maybe Chance Moore in the starting lineup in place of Eaglestaff. But that's interesting because I feel like Chance Moore is playing a lot at the 4. And I don't see Lorient leaving the starting lineup. But who knows? But it's going to change. And maybe that's reducing from playing 10 guys to playing 8. So we're on the clock. He's still in step 1. But if he's telling you what the steps are, that means he's looking at the next step. And maybe he is doing step 2 and I just don't see it. But the next question, and this is a concerning question for the 2025-2026 season, is step 3. Because in 2 seasons at North Texas, the stats would indicate that Ross Hodge didn't change it up and do something else. And I watched very few of the North Texas games when Ross Hodge was the head coach. Really, just the time that North Texas was in the NIT last season. But if step 3 is in the cards for this season, that's not good because West Virginia will have lost games trying step 1 and step 2. And getting to step 3 doesn't guarantee that you're going to win games. And I bet step 3 is a very hard step for Coach Hodge to make. But that is, he said the steps. And so you do the math on what step he's on. We all need to be concerned if he gets a step 3. The other thing he said in the post-game press conference is sometimes these guys had limited offensive opportunities because their defense kept them off the floor. Now, that is more targeted, and you can fill in the blanks and do the math on who those comments are directed at. But he is focused on the defense first. And for the defense to give up this many open threes and to shoot over 51% from the floor, Ross Hodge is not happy with that. And we've got to find out how many steps he's going to go to. Let's hope it's not 3. Unreasonable Doubt is under the Smoking Musket umbrella. Go to smokingmusket.com. Read posts about WVU sports, daily throwdown. Check that out. Go to the Discord. We're talking about WVU sports and other stuff on the Smoking Musket Discord. Link for that is in the show notes. Listen to West by Pod, the WVU football podcast under the Smoking Musket umbrella. Do all that stuff. Smoking Musket. The next game for WVU, good news, not in Charleston, West Virginia, or Charleston, South Carolina. It's in the Hope Coliseum. It's Wednesday, 7 p.m. If you can't go to the Hope Coliseum, it's going to be on a fantastic streaming platform, ESPN+. Have you heard of it? They do great work over there at ESPN+. West Virginia will come home and face the Little Rock Trojans. Little Rock is currently the 315th best Division I team in Ken Pomeroy's computer. They, like Coppin State, have 2 wins on the season. One of those is against the Division I opponent. So not great, not a great resume. They have 1 good stat compared to Coppin State's 0 stats, good stats. Little Rock shoots the 3-ball well. But the bad news of that for Little Rock is that they don't shoot a ton of threes. So they shoot them well, they don't shoot them very often. And that's the positive stat, is that when they shoot the 3, they do it well. Defensively, the opponent field goal percentage is atrocious. I mean, it's the darkest of red in Ken Pomeroy's computer. Opponents shoot the 3-ball very well. Opponents shoot 2-pointers very well. And they are missing starters due to injuries, and they are the Little Rock Trojans. I can't imagine West Virginia having a tough time with Little Rock, but you know the math. Against Little Rock, against Coppin State, against Mercyhurst, against Lehigh, against Lafayette, win by a lot, don't have any injuries, and give guys some rest that play a ton of minutes. Because Honor Huff, he played 39 minutes tonight. Jasper Floyd played 37 minutes, I believe. Getting those guys under 30 minutes because there's not a ton of opportunities left. It's Little Rock, and after Ohio State, it's Mississippi Valley State. And then you start the Big 12 conference schedule at Hilton against an Iowa State team that went to West Lafayette, Indiana, and thumped Purdue, who have very good odds to win the national championship. They went into their place and were very mean to the Boilermakers. So and then there's 17 other Big 12 games after that. And so these are the last 2 chances to take a break. I don't imagine West Virginia's, if West Virginia is giving guys a break in Big 12 play, it's not going to be a good thing. That's my guess as of right now. So those are the thresholds. Can West Virginia meet those 3 steps in the bye game against a bad Little Rock team? We'll find out. That's it for this episode of Unreasonable Doubt. Listen on all the platforms. Just pick one. Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcast, Overcast Podcast, Pocket Cast Podcast, YouTube. Until next time, I'm Josh Witt. WVU for the 2025-2026 season. They have 7 wins and they have 3 losses.